And I am so excited today. I've got the most amazing guest for us to talk to. Her name is Lynne Franks. She's joining us from the UK, and you can see her wonderful theatrical background behind, which I'm sure she's going to have something to tell us about. Welcome, Lynne, and I know it's like 11:30 in the morning, it's 8:30 at night, and believe it or not, I'm watching
It's 10 o'clock.
I mean, I'm in the middle of watching The Crown on TV, so there you go. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've lived a really big life. What are you doing now?
Well, at this point in my life, sort of the wise woman phase, I have moved to Somerset in the southwest of the UK. I have a couple of buildings here that are closed right now because of COVID, like everyone else, where I have a cafe and a hub where people come and stay and do retreats. And I have a store, a beautiful store. So like everyone, we're all online now. So I've recently launched the SEED Hub Club, which I can give details of later, which is a real home for wise women to connect and share their stories and grow through to become the leaders that they are. So there's, I'm writing, I'm doing, as always in my life, a multitude of things and juggling them all. And my background, do you want to talk about where
I sort of picked this up, that it's not even an encore career. It's just like an extension of who you are at this next stage of your life, what you're doing. Would that be correct?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I think, I mean, probably the same for you. Most women, I think, really do merge their purpose, their life, and their work as one. Otherwise, we don't get that sort of heart connection. So I'm definitely doing heart connections. My career started when I was very young. I was a young journalist. Then I started a PR company at 21. That became the biggest fashion PR company in the UK. And I created London Fashion Week and was very involved with all the designers. And yet still realized there was something missing in my life. Went on a spiritual journey really and started getting involved in lots of causes. I created the biggest awareness campaign for HIV/AIDS. I was working in human rights, women's rights, and after 20 years I sold my business and went to live in California from London and wrote a book called the SEED Handbook. And what you call the theatrical stuff is actually all my books and everything from SEED, which is an acronym for Sustainable Enterprise and Empowerment Dynamics. And it was the first book anywhere in the world that was written for women, based on values, based on the feminine way of doing things, listening to their intuition, all the things that women do much more naturally, collaborating, connecting, and multitasking. And it became an international bestseller. It's certainly been out in Australia over the years. I've been there a number of times. Talking about SEED, and SEED became a body of content really aimed at women's empowerment over the 20 years since it came out. This is the 20th year, which were, the content was delivered in women's prisons and in African villages and post-war zones, as well as the corporate boardroom. And it's had a tremendous effect. I work with companies like MacDonald's, creating women's leadership networks in Europe, and Tesco and women's engagement and other powerful businesses. But at the same time, I've always been very focused on the grassroots, women in the grassroots. If we can make changes, if we can come together, then we can create a new future. And that has never, ever been more relevant than it is now. Anywhere in the world, the UK, Australia, anywhere, Africa, where I've also worked, is about, and I'm also very, I'm building up a program to work with women refugees in the Middle East as well. And there's never been a more important time for women to grow into their fullness of being, their potential, their life purpose, and work together. I mean, that's the key to it. It's actually by coming together. So I'm now coaching groups of 7. I've got a program called Power of 7 based on ancient archetypes, which really represents all aspects of a woman: the seed sower, the storyteller, the alchemist, the medicine woman, the wise woman, and others. And I've been working with that for the last 3 years, and that's all about women's leadership, really, working on the balance, harmonious balance of our own different aspects, and then working in small groups, pods, and then creating connection with other pods and learning from each other. So that's going on at the moment as well. It's all very exciting, and other things, lots of stuff.
That sounds, you know, very simple, but I'm sure you're incredibly busy behind the scenes to do all of that.
Yeah, it is busy, and because everything's online now, I am speaking at so many, like speaking to yourself, speaking to so many networks, speaking to so many conferences, webinars, everything all the time, and more than I probably was before, because of course I'm just walking into my own office next door where I live, as opposed to getting on a train or a car. But it's really important, I think, at this point in my life, with the experience I've had, now being, you know, the grandmother and the wise woman, to share my my experience and knowledge, really, and wisdom, if there is any wisdom there. I hope there is at this point.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of getting older. You do feel as though you're a little bit wiser. So are your courses, are they online, or are you doing, you know, as an online course, or is it a combination of real world and online?
Well, currently they're online. A few months ago, they were a combination. Next spring, who knows? Next spring, I'm doing an enormous event on seeding the future based in Somerset, but that will be global, talking to women leaders all over the world about how we can create this new world. I do think this opportunity, this pause, this horrible situation that's affected every single country and person in the world, is also an opportunity for change. It's also an opportunity for transformation in a positive way, and it's about staying positive and keeping those visions out there, and encouraging others to do the same. So that's really what I spend most of my time doing, whether it be coaching or courses or whatever it is. That's basically it. Let's create this new vision together, you know, whatever your vision, Kathie, is, as well. I mean, it's about all of us meeting each other, coming together, and really growing the vision, because we can, yeah, you can do it.
So can anyone join into your network? What do they need to do to become part of it?
Yeah, if they want to come to Facebook, to my group on Facebook, it's SEED Women with Lynne Franks is the name of the group, and anyone can come there. We also have a new platform. I don't know if you want me to put it in the chat room. Should I put it in the chat room? That'd be easier.
Yeah, that would be great.
So it's I did this the other day. It's multitasking beyond the seedhub.club, and that is a membership, very reasonably priced membership. We do have people from Australia actually, and we do constant workshops on well-being, talks, not by me, by lots of fantastic guests who come and do everything from sort of business workshops to qigong, mindfulness. We have regular wisdom chats with me and the community, come in and out. We do craft workshops as well, because that's part of what we do here, about bringing out the creative. The space weaver is the archetype for that. So we have a lot going on here, and it's all at the Seed Hub Club. So yes, anybody listening who would like to be part of the community, please come. And we do things at times of the day which work for Australia too. So we're learning about, well, I've had to really getting time fixed, which works in California and also works in Australia, which is kind of an interesting challenge. But we've got the most, I believe, brilliant coaches and experts that come in and talk on our site. And I think the main thing is about the women themselves coming together, sharing their stories, which are, everyone has a story, Kathie. We all know that, and more than one. And when women start sharing those stories that they've kept locked up for a very long time, and expressing the trauma that that's had on their lives, and by expressing it and being heard, and I know this is a lot of the work that you do, being heard, they are healing a lot of that trauma. And so I watch it happening with humility, to see how women can really support each other and learn from each other. And then we move on to, okay, now how can we together create this new future? What does it look like? What does it look like in terms of growing our food locally, or the new circular economy, or how education can work in a different way, without sort of just by rota drumming information into children, but letting them grow as individuals. It's all about the children, of course. I'm a grandmother of 7. So it's a very exciting time, as much as it's also, you know, a very challenging time for many, and also a very sad time for those who have actually suffered and had losses. But it is a time when we really can create these changes. And so next spring, I'm doing a big event, which will be global. And I should talk to you about that another time and get your community involved as well, which is about what this new future really can look like and how we can design templates that we can really give to each other, women's led, but obviously would involve men as well, but women led, which can work in small communities. I live in a town of 5,000 people, a little English town. I've only lived here 3 years. I've lived everywhere from Los Angeles to a small tiny village in Mallorca to London. It's very interesting for me to see what it's like living in a small English British town. Mostly it's very, very good. Some of it is like a bit challenging, I guess. That, you know, there's a lot of newcomers here, and the old comers are not always that welcoming, but we're getting there. And our ambition, and I say our, that's myself and most of the people in this community, want to create this into a sustainable town in every way we can, rewilding, regrowing, you know, working with the kids, making sure, like you, that we don't have people that are living in isolation. So it's an interesting kind of real life, I won't say experiment, it's nothing, but experience is the word for me, while at the same time keeping the kind of global vision going.
It's fascinating, you know, because I'm having similar conversations with many, many people, and the commonality, as you quite rightly said, is everyone's got a backstory. Everyone's got some trauma. Everyone wants to be validated, or at least to express that story and own that story. And from there they can move on. But the other commonality is, even though our politicians, whatever your views are all talking about lockdown and go back into, moving into the new you and all of that, the reality is there is a social conscience movement that is coming up and saying, we don't want it the same way as we had it anyway. There is more to life. And I talk to many, many like-minded people like yourself who are saying, this greed, this notion of give me, it's got to be different. And look what we've done to our planet. So I just got to applaud you for, doing your bit to bring women together. And I hope this group, we can help expand that consciousness for you.
Yes, it would be wonderful to do something together. I'm a great fan of Australia and Australian women. And as I told you earlier, I was married to an Australian man for many years. He used to come over very regularly, and I made some wonderful friends over there. And it is time for change, and it's time for change in these male-led societies, Australia being very blokey, as we know. There's time, the misogyny has to go. It is time for women to be the leaders they are, but not in the male way. When I see young women feeling, or particularly politicians, believing that they have to behave in the same way as the men to get on, it breaks my heart. But I think that's changing. There's a lot of fantastic young women out there, and that's the role of the wise woman. At the age I am now, it's like, really, I've learned a lot from my business experiences, my social change activities, and it's about holding our hands out to the younger women and saying, this is how it can be done, and learn from my mistakes as well as my successes.
So where do the men figure in your vision? Because I know in our conversation, there are so many, really aware men that are saying, hang on, I'm not so keen on the way things are being done, and I don't agree with that. And, I was raised by a mother and I was taught better. And it's no judgment on our male folk, but it's saying there is a level of consciousness that's a little bit different for many men.
I think there's some amazing men out there. I'm glad to say I have them quite a few. I'm just putting my Facebook group in there as well. So just suddenly thought, sorry, multitasking my brain as I am. So we have to do it with the men. Of course, we have to do it with the men. Yeah. It makes no sense for us to do it on our own, but the men have to also accept us in our leadership role, and they're there to support us. I have, I'm trying to work out how many I have got. I've got 4 grandsons as well, and 3 granddaughters. I've got a son and a daughter. And I think, it's tougher for the men right now because they're looking for their sense of identity, and there are many out there who do want very much to be moving into this new future, and they're beautiful men, beautiful energy, and very conscious. So, we want to meet with them and be there and allow them to be men, and for them to allow us to be women, because we, you know, there are, without generalizations, there are differences in our way of thinking and behavior, not everybody, but a certain amount, and for those who identify as men, as women these days, of course. But I think I always used to get asked, why do you have to have these women's groups? When I started working even with MacDonald's, why do the women need to be on their own? And it's because we need our women's space to express things we would simply not say in front of men. We would not be so open. We wouldn't discuss. Things are changing. We would not discuss the menopause or our sexuality or our pain or our hurt or the damage of the womb, if you like, on a metaphoric basis, if the man is sitting there. We just wouldn't. So we need our circles, our ancient circles as women, to sit and talk and discuss and share and hold each other. And then we need, and the men need their spaces. The men need to have that space. I think that's most important. They need to be able to feel safe and share with other men, because a lot of the kind of more conscious men that I know tend to hang out more with women because they feel safer. And I think we have to get the men being, you know, being together and sharing, and then we bring the groups together and we say, you know, how we feel. And like in any relationship, a male and a female, it's like, I'm feeling this because, you know, we have to do that as genders. I'm feeling this because, you know, that's the way it's going to be. So we need a huge healing, a huge gender healing, that's for sure. Yeah. And as the young men grow up, the sons and the grandsons of women who have kind of evolved, they will be bringing those generations with them. I have great hopes for my beautiful young grandsons who are from 3 to 11, and they're just absolutely gorgeous, of course. So it's like, you know, as they evolve into men, they will be, I know, a very different kind of man. But as you say, it's more the systems. We talk about new paradigms, and we talk about the systems. We have to go from the old-fashioned system of the hierarchical, linear, top-down, and we have to go from a circular system, grassroots, which is from the bottom up. And that's where I see women's roles as holding from the bottom up the space, the energy, the consciousness for all, for men, for women, for children, for youth, for the planet, of course. And we are the cup, we are the goblet, we are whatever you want to call it, the vessel that holds that energy. You know, it's like, I was born Jewish, so I'm not a great expert on, and I'm practicing Buddhist, so I'm not a huge expert on, you know, the Holy Ghost and the triangle, the Christian triangle, but it is, you know, the feminine energy is the vessel that holds.
Yeah. So to get to where you are now, what experiences have sort of shaped your identity for, you know, your view? I mean, I sort of wanted to ask you about, you did some work around women in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is that correct? From, you know, things like that. Did they really say, okay, here I am in my 70s, these experiences, you know, we can do it better?
Yeah, well, I didn't go to the DRC, right, but I worked very closely with Eve Ensler, who wrote Vagina Monologue, who set up an incredible place there called City of Joy, where women who had been abused and raped in the most terrible, severe ways, where rape is used as a weapon of war, were taught new skills and their bodies were healed. It's an amazing story. What I did was I created awareness in the UK, including in the British government, that this was going on. There was no talk about this. No one knew about it or even understood or accepted that actually the amount of rape that was happening in the DRC just for greed. Again, it wasn't anything more than the fact that these different tribes were manipulated, in my opinion, so that about ownership of the mines, because in the DRC, right, goes back to King Leopold in Belgium when they took it over, when the Europeans came in, it was a beautiful, rich country full of natural deposits of minerals and gems, and still is what's left. And so one of the things that we need, I hate to say, for our mobile phones, coltan, largely comes from the DRCs, from mines there. So that's what it's all about. It ends up being the rape of the woman, as always, and the exploitation of the children. Actually, it's just about who can own the mines that makes the money from the coltan that we need, that goes into our phones and our computers. It's just horrible. So, you know, I was a PR for many years, and I guess that's what I still am, really. I'm a sharer of information and knowledge, and when I hear about it, I want people to know about it. So that's what I did. So yes, I learned a lot, but I did go to Africa. I did work in South Africa with the township women and with the rural women, and I learned a lot from them. And I've, you know, in any of my work, I just find that we're learning. I learn from the women that I work with all the time, in women in prisons. You know, I really feel very humble that I have had the opportunity to know so many different women, different ages, different countries, and learn from their experiences how I can be kind of a better person and what I can teach others. For example, a lot of African villages, the women will plant the seeds for the vegetables, and they will take the surplus to the market. It's very simplistic, but it's true. Take their vegetables to market to sell, and then any surplus of what they make, they put into buying seeds for the younger women to start growing their vegetables. This is just a natural way of being for them. Well, why aren't we doing something in our own ways similarly? You know, teaching young women, giving them the resources. So those are the kind of things I've learned, how to be in community, how to be collaborative in community and work together in the most terrible situations that I saw in South Africa, where the women were being abused, the children were being abused, horrible cases of incest where they still didn't have access to fresh water, you know, real extreme poverty. And yet within that, the women, the grandmothers and the mothers, a lot of them had actually died from AIDS, but the grandmothers were holding those communities together. I mean, in North America, the First Nation tribes, some of them, it's the grandmothers, the matriarchs, the wise women, the shamans, who choose who choose the young braves who are going to be the next leaders. So to me, this makes a lot of sense. So it's like, that's how we can work together.
It's quite similar with our First Nation people in Australia. And you know, we've just had this most remarkable celebration called NAIDOC Week this year. And for the first time ever, you know, I noticed Australians really embracing our First Nation people. It was really wonderful. But the many messages were around, you know, wise women, you know, like the matriarch of the culture.
I met many. I used to have a sister-in-law who used to be married to my ex-husband's brother, who was a First Nation woman leader in Western Australia. So I had the total joy of getting to know her and understanding what was happening with women's leaderships in the First Nation community in Australia. And I've met subsequently many women really blow me away. First Nation Australian women just absolutely blow me away. Real leaders. And it's time.
Yes, it is time. And that's a really classic statement. So a couple of questions. I mean, it would be remiss of me not to mention COVID, because you're about to go into another lockdown or just starting. Is that
We're in it.
Yeah. And how are you all coping?
Oh, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I mean, you know, I don't feel I'm locked in or locked up. You know, I'm out and about, and my staff come to work, and but you know, we don't travel very far. But what is breaking my heart, particularly because I have small business, I have my store at the front of the building here, is that it's really affecting women, not just the isolation, but women are the small independent business owners. They are the hairdressers, the florists, the gift shops, the fashion shops, the cafe owners, predominantly. I've just come to this conclusion over the last 2 days, and we've had to just close, having just got back up again, because we put our heart and souls into business, as we started by saying, when that's what women do, having had the first lockdown and then slowly coming up, and then suddenly out of nowhere, especially southwest England, which has got very low records of infection, boom, we're told to close. And we as a store, for example, buy from other women entrepreneurs that make beautiful natural oils, beauty products, clothing from communities in Nepal, you know, so it's a chain thing. And yet, and this is what really I'm in a lot of pain about at the moment, not just my business, but just the principle of what it's doing. You know, it's almost like it's become a feminist issue, is that the supermarkets are open, selling anything they want. You know, there's so many different businesses. The estate agent right opposite me is open. And so he can show people around houses. So the illogical planning and thinking by our government. I don't know what's happening in Australia. You know, if it was a lockdown and it made sense and everybody was, you know, but it's not. It's been done so badly, and so people are suffering. And then we have our care homes where the elderly are dying because of lack of touch and contact with their families. Today they're announcing some kind of shift, but that should never have happened. Never should have happened. And not only elderly in care homes, there's young people in care homes who haven't been able to see their parents, and nobody understands, they can't understand what's going on. And so this lack of touch, it's almost as if all of joy, dancing, singing, touch has been taken out of society globally. And it's not that I don't see that there is a reason for people to be careful and sensible, but the way it's been gone about, to me, is been done, I can only talk about this country really, has been done very, very poorly, very badly, and very painfully. And of course there's isolation, and there's mental health, and there's physical abuse, and the children, and it's, you know, the children shouldn't be seeing people in masks, they shouldn't be wearing masks. Well, we can have a whole conversation about what the masks do and what they don't, but it's like everything that is human has been taken out of our lives.
I just want to pick up on the point about care and touch in aged care or care homes. I couldn't agree more. You know, it's almost as though people have been put in those homes. Yes, they've got all these safety measures, but, you know, for many people, that is their last home. You know, their time is limited. And to have no touch, no connection with their family, or they've had these things called windows of love where people can go and look in. And for me, it feels like a zoo. I'm sorry, it's like they need a hug and they need someone's hand. You know, one of the things as chaplains that we do is hold someone's hand. Sometimes you just want someone to cry with you. And we all get there. And I think you're totally right. We've taken the human out of this situation. Yes, it's a terrible thing. Yes, they've had to try and adopt, you know, massive approaches. But, you know, the most vulnerable people, for me, I think it's cruel. So, yeah.
So cruel. I mean, I just feel like crying just even as we talk about it. It's everything that we are not as human beings. We have empathy. We resonate with others. We need our touch. We need to be held. I haven't seen my grandchildren the whole time. I don't want to go into London. They're in London. They don't want to come down here. And officially, we're not allowed to anyway. But, you know, people are. But it's just breaking my heart. And yeah, it's not being done with any compassion, but they pretend. And I don't know about your country, but the money, the billions that have gone into businesses making money from this, whether it be making masks or protective things or vaccinations or whatever it is, huge amounts of money. And they are all going to companies that are part of the cartel which surround Westminster. They're not being done intelligently, and it's so corrupt. The whole thing makes me very, very upset. And you know, we have to learn to create something better from it. We really do.
So that's probably a good segue to two questions. Is you know, as you move through life, you start to think about meaning and purpose and what spirituality means to you. So where are you at with that thinking? What does it mean to you? And given the environment we're all living in, you know, what have you had to do to practice self-care? For me, I call it extreme self-care, because you have to really put in place some sort of ritual just to keep going.
Yes, well, I have for 30 odd years, on and off, and very much on now. I did it for a number of years and then stopped, and now I do it. Been practicing Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, which is a practice which chants. Now, even other than the actual belief system of what the history and everything, it comes out of Japan. I have done enough research to know that chanting vibration actually affects the neuro pathways of our brain. So every morning, but what I like about this practice is it is a practice. So it's not like random, because if it was random, I'd probably, I'll do that later. Every morning and every evening, there is a practice. I have an altar. I sit in front of it. I light my candles. I light my incense. I go through the prayers, which are in Sanskrit, phonetically pronounced. And then I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I chant it repetitively for whatever time I have spare. And that keeps me now in my center and makes me who I am. And it's what did it for me when I started practicing 35 years ago. For 11 years, I did it without fail. Then my voice went and things went changing my life, and I let it go. I'm also a great believer in meditation. I'm a great believer in all kinds of chanting and meditation, and I bring as much into my life as I can. But for me, just knowing that I have this practice every day outside my bedroom door, I have my whole area of my altar and where I practice my whatever I'm doing, and so that is the discipline of it. It's not, I don't say that in a bad way, because nothing's going to happen to me if I don't do it, but it's just having that, because it's so easy for me to get distracted. So having that in my day is very, very important. On top of that, it's also about, as you say, self-care and how we look after ourselves. And I'm glad I've got a dog that I've had for many years who's sitting patiently on my sofa waiting to be taken for a walk. So having animals around, and I have a cat, and you know, at night, if I haven't got visitors, I'll be slopped on the sofa watching Netflix, like you probably will be when we get off this call. And you know, I've got the cat on my stomach and the dog at my feet, and that's all part of our oxytocin, isn't it? When we are surrounded by animals and children and other women, we release this hormone, which is our well-being hormone. And I eat well. I take a lot of supplements. I don't take any pharmaceutical products whatsoever, produced products. And I am very conscious that at 72, with the schedules that I give myself, it's very, very important to get in exercise as much as I can. So I do 5 rhythms dance once a week online, and I do fitness online, and I do qigong online, and that's at the moment. And the thing is, there's so much that's accessible. You know, it's so easy just to. It is a bit too much screen time, but in this big computer that I'm sitting in front of now, I can just swivel it around. I can dance around the room. I can do my fitness. I can do my qigong. So that's really important as well. I'm drinking lots of water. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, Lynne, and you know, it's been lovely to connect, and I hope you'll stay in touch, because I think people have enjoyed this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kathie. And I would love to, if I can, promote it on my social media and to my community. And, you know, let's stay in touch and see if there's something further down the line that we can do together. It'd be really, really good.